Okay, so a fair warning. I wrote this review, and quite honestly, I'm kinda brutal on this mic. I think in this review I've searched for more faults than I have in the past. I think as I review more and more mics, my threshold for what I define as a good mic, and also my ear, gets a little bit more particular. I guess that bar is getting just continually a little bit higher. But despite the somewhat nitpicky nature of this review, I do want to start off by saying this is a very good mic. I think it's better than 90% of the offerings in this price range, and I prefer it to many of the competitors like the AT2020 or the Samson C01, maybe the Behringer B1. So bear that in mind. While I am pretty critical of this microphone, I think it's more based on the fact that I've seen so many glowing reviews of this mic. I think the representation online of this microphone is that for the price, it's a perfect alternative. But this is far from a perfect mic, and there are some aspects of this microphone that make it less than ideal, and places where the budget and the price of this mic really shows. It's a good mic. It's a very good mic, especially for this price, but it's not devoid of imperfection. So keep that in mind as we go into the processed versus unprocessed comparison part of this review. Let's go. This is without a doubt one of the most hyped and most requested microphones for me to review on the channel. But my question here is why? If I'm honest, there's nothing particularly special about the specs of this microphone. It frequently gets compared to the AT2020, the Samson C01, and the Behringer B1, and they all kind of share a similar issue, which we'll get to. Perhaps one of the reasons that this microphone is held in such high regard are its subtle allusions to a microphone much more expensive than itself, that being the Neumann TLM-103. The silver, greenish, champagne hue of this microphone harkens back to vintage Neumanns. Its form factor is very reminiscent of a TLM-103, and it's not uncommon to see in the comments or in the Discord, which you should go join, that this is the budget TLM-103. You know, in this microphone's marketing, when you go on the website, there's a lot of buzzwords that they like to throw around to make it sound fancy. Things like a FET preamp and a balanced output. These terms imply a degree of technical superiority when in reality, a bunch of microphones have these things. A FET preamp is how condenser microphones are powered, and a balanced output is just an XLR cable. The fact that they're replacing commonplace features with more uppity vocab buzzwords kind of implies that they're marketing this to the uninformed. Anyways, just an interesting observation of their marketing. Regardless, in the audio engineering community, in the microphone community, in the audiophile community, the MXL 990 is a favorable choice for a budget microphone. It has a pretty big cult following. In essence, this is a microphone that's trying to imply its connection to more vintage Neumann-style microphones, while also having some buzzwords and marketing that draws in a younger, more beginner audience. So let's go with that. Let's talk about the difference between this microphone and the TLM-103, which I know are worlds apart in terms of budget, but clearly this microphone is hearkening to that microphone and pointing to it in terms of an inspiration. Check out the 103's frequency response and check out the MXL 990s. And there's definitely a similar thing going on here, and after doing some experimentation, I can see a lot of tonal similarities between the two, except for one very important thing. Neumann has a very characteristically smooth, rich, high-end shelf. When we look at the 103 frequency response, we see this dead flat sort of plateau in the high end. In my opinion, this dead straight shelf, when combined with a really beautiful flat control of the mid-range, that's kind of the Neumann tone if you could dilute it down to a frequency response curve. In this aspect, the MXL 990 begins to fall short. So the presence boost is noticeably less shelf-like, meaning there isn't this sort of consistent, almost compressive quality to the high end. It's sort of what you would expect from a mildly bright, mildly mid-range focused microphone. It is a nice, bright microphone. I think it is kind of a conservatively bright microphone, but done in a really tasteful way. Does it sound a lot like a 103? Probably not without a little bit of EQing. Now, obviously, this isn't really fair. This microphone is 1/10 the price of a 103. But because of how much it's pointing towards that microphone, in my opinion, as a heritage piece, it's worth pointing out. The tone is great, and it punches way above its weight class, but with any budget microphone, I feel like that statement has a bit of an asterisk to it that I need to point out. The low end and mid-range can quickly go from composed and beautiful to, rumbly, depending of course on the sound source and proximity effect. I realize this is sort of an issue with all condenser microphones, but particularly with the 990, it seems in my opinion to be particularly sensitive to fluctuations in low end, going from like a controlled and restrained sound to a sudden, intense non-uniformity before it begins to settle back down again back to that controlled, tasteful tuning. Its off-axis coloration is a bit brutal too. There's a lot of low-end information that you find on the back of this microphone. It's also a pretty loud signal, which reveals a little bit about how well it rejects the environment around it. It's not the best at room rejection. I certainly wouldn't say it's the worst. Something like an NT1 is actually a bit poorer at room rejection. Here, take a listen to it yourself. We'll compare it against a Rode NT1, a Lewitt 441, and also a Roswell K67X. The statement that we're going to use to compare off-axis rejection in these samples, it will make sense in a second. I don't know why I chose to do this clip first, but the clip will make sense when we do the blind test.
Cassowaries kill you by launching at your head with their velociraptor-style claws. Cassowaries kill you by launching at your head with their velociraptor-style claws. Cassowaries kill you by launching at your head with their velociraptor-style claws. Cassowaries kill you by launching at your head with their velociraptor-style claws.
Okay, so let's compare it now to a few other budget, more expensive microphones. We got the Rode NT1 for a darker, flatter signal. We've got the Lewitt for a very bright signal, brighter than this microphone. And we've got the Roswell K67X, which is another microphone I'm testing. This has an actual transformer in it. It's a very dark microphone. So take a listen to this monologue where I tell you why I hate birds. Okay, so here's a fun fact about me. I am terrified of birds. A lot of birds, not all birds, but particularly large birds, anything that's like bigger than a duck, and primarily like a geese, which is a long story in and of itself. I've been attacked by geese like 4 times. I think they sense or smell my fear. But this thing, this is my worst nightmare. This is a cassowary. It is the scariest, most terrifying animal on the planet, and I will not accept any other answers. And I don't want to hear, Ricky, humans are the most terrifying animals on the planet. Like, yeah, I get it. We're destroying the planet. We're causing a mass extinction. That's a fair point. But you're not going to get scared of a Karen walking over to tell you how bad of a parking job you did. If you even see this thing walking towards you on the most pleasant of days, I guarantee you shit your pants. If you think you can come up with a more terrifying animal than this, leave it in the comments and I will reply telling you why you're wrong. So there's a little bit about tone, but now let's move on to something that everyone loves to pick on this microphone for, and it's a good reason to pick on it, but a little bit predictable. This microphone has a really high level of self-noise, 20 dBA, or about 2/3 the volume of a human whisper, which means this microphone probably isn't the best for a solo voiceover application. Now this will become more and more apparent the more you EQ, the more you compress, the more you add tasteful harmonic decisions like maybe a little bit of tape emulation, maybe a little bit of harmonic saturation. All these things are going to increase that hiss just a little bit more. This really isn't a big deal if it's going to be inside of a mix, although maybe if you're doing a bunch of overdubs, you might increase the general noise floor if you're only using this microphone. In that case, just put a gate on it. But with voiceover, this might make it a little bit less usable than something that's a little bit more expensive. If you're looking for a voiceover mic with a really low self-noise and still with a low budget, check out the Neat King B2. My copy also came with a number of small little defects. A few dents here and there, the grill is kind of cheap feeling, feels like it might bust in. The seams on the joint are just not quite there. I'll give you some shots so you can see. This isn't even in the script. This just happened whenever I was setting up. Check this out. Can you see that? That is the screw to attach it to the shock mount. The shock mount that you're seeing here came from the clip, not the actual shock mount, just a regular mic clip. I had to unscrew it, take it out, and put it into this shock mount. The metal, I guess, was just not a very good high quality and snapped the screw in half. Now, in my experimentation with it, I know I sound really critical right now, but it's still a beautiful sounding microphone. It sounds great, I think, on spoken word. sounds great on vocals, and sounds pretty decent on my acoustic guitar as well. A lot of these issues can be explained by the low price point. At the end of the day, if you don't have a big budget, I would still probably recommend this microphone over most of the other ones on the market. I prefer it to the AT2020, and you guys know I like that microphone. Keep in mind though, you're going to be dealing with a little bit less high of a build quality. It has some tonal imperfections to it. It's not impenetrable. That's the thing I wanted to do with this review. I saw so many reviews of this microphone just talking about how it's the perfect alternative to even more expensive microphones, and I just don't think that's true. It's a more honest review of this microphone. It's a more critical review of this microphone, but it's still a good microphone. So with that said, let's do a couple of blind tests. We're going to use the Samson CO1, a big competitor for this microphone. We're going to do a test on acoustic guitar, and we're going to do a test on electric guitar, both of them blind. Okay, folks, I hope that was helpful. If you'd like, you can follow me on Instagram at RealAudioHaze. If you'd like to work on a project with me, you can email me at realaudiohaze@gmail.com. Check out the Discord if you haven't already. There's an amazing community there of other audio nerds. I would love if you joined. And goodbye.